Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Okay, so I promise you, we are going to get to one day these white folks are going to put the wrong idiot in office. I like to start really broad and then work my way in. In 1999, what was going on in film? I know Being John Malkovich was being released, Go, and all these films, and here we have Ninth Street.
Well, you know, the thing was that I kind of learned early on that I just didn't think about, you know, the business at all. That's why I had no money for such a long time. but I just didn't think about the business aspect of it, and I know that's really crazy, stupid to say, and I'm a stupid kind of guy. But I just kind of wanted, I knew Hollywood wasn't interested in a movie like this. And this was about my hometown. And I have to acknowledge some folks that came here real quick, because if I don't, I would be wrong in doing this. I promise I won't forget my train of thought here. I didn't have a good high school experience. And most of the teachers I had, I hated. But there was a teacher I had named Mr. Barth, and he was one of the only guys that I had that understood me. And I had a couple other folks that understood me, but Mr. Barth was one of those students that understood me, and his family is here. And would they stand up, Mr. Barth's family? Your father is a great man, and thank you for coming. It means a great deal to me. I got to see him after they threw me out of high school, and but I got to see him years later, and I was speaking at Highland Park High School in Topeka. So the last time I seen him, they had thrown my ass out, and then now I'm guest speaking, and he was the principal. And it was so great because it was like full circle of I was in his psychology class, and I think he knew I was crazy, so that was a perfect class for me to be in with him. But then, so anyway, I just thank you guys so much. But the thing about Ninth Street was that, you know, it started as a play at Marymount College in Salina, Kansas. Yes, it did. And my parents met on Ninth Street. My mother ran a pool hall on Ninth Street. And my father went down and gambled. And so Ninth Street was just this incredibly important thing in my house. And my parents talked about Ninth Street like an old friend. And so all that, as a kid, that all stayed with me. And then when the street was knocked down, it just became even more important, you know. So when we made the film, you know, I have to tell you real quick here. So I had no money, and I was living in New York. I went to NYU, and I was trying to find a way to get the movie going. And so at this time they had a Kansas Film Commission, and so I came from New York, and they treated me like I was Steven Spielberg or something, you know. And I literally had no money, you know, no money, zero. And so the Kansas City Film Commission had just started, and they were having their press conference, their first initial press conference, and they were showing me around Kansas City the locations, and they said, "Would you like to announce your film?" And I said, "Yeah, let me announce my movie." So I had no money, and I announced my film, and Robert Butler people audition for the film. And I got all my costumes, I got my wardrobe, all the antique cars, I got my locations, I got all the extras, I found my actors, I got all of that from just, as my friend Matt Jacobson says, I threw my hat over the fence, and then I had to go get it. and so literally, announcing the film was one of the great things that I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but God was looking out for me. And then I was working at a place here in town, because, I don't know, it's a long story. I was working at a place here in town, I was sorting mail. And I was sorting mail, and your old girlfriend, I was sorting mail with his old girlfriend. And I told her, I said, I'm trying to make this movie, and she said, my boyfriend's not. And so I said, well, dang, but 9 black people in Lawrence, I gotta find this. So, and we've been friends ever since, and so it was so great because we went to London together with Queen Bay, and we showed the film at the Rain Dance Film Festival, and it was so great. And so anyway, but so we just told the story. We really did.
Yes, and for you, Byron, your girlfriend comes home and says, "I know this filmmaker." Tell me the process of hooking up with Kevin and getting this. Did you have to audition?
Absolutely. So Kevin and Carla, she gave Kevin my number, and I was at KU in the theater department at the time. Yes, sir. And I think I was double cast in 2 shows going back to back. I was like crazy busy. I really kind of just got into the theater department. And then she told me about Kevin, and then he reached out to me, and he said, "I want you to come by my house and do a cold reading, and we'll talk about the screenplay and the role and these things like that." And if I'm not mistaken, I think you lived on Oswald at the time. Yeah. And so I came over to the house, and then we had some conversation, and then he was like, just, do what you do, read the part, and so I did, and then we went through some other parts of the script, and I read that, and he was like, okay, I'll be in touch with you, you know what I mean, and we'll see how I go. Well, I do want to say this part. When I asked him, I was like, so when you first wrote this part, like, who was you thinking about, or who was it supposed to be for? Yeah. And he told me that it was supposed to be for this rapper named Big Daddy Kane. I don't know if y'all know who that is. But Big Daddy Kane, that's my man. So I like that love for him. I got love.
I think you're better than Daddy.
Yes, no doubt. Yes, I brought the real love, sure. And then I liked the name of the character, and in my head I was saying to myself, well, this will be a stretch, but then not. But no, at the end of the day, Kevin reached back out to me, and he was like, "You got the part, and let's get it going." And here we are.
A pimp named Love.
Oh my goodness.
When you read the script, and a little bit of a stretch, but not all the way, okay. What did you think about his character, and what he was capable of, and how you would draw that out of yourself?
When I thought about the character Love, as it related to 9th Street and Junction City, he reminded me of kind of one of those characters outside of being a pimp. He was forward thinking, and he was trying to flip Ninth Street. He knew that it couldn't survive in its same existence. He was trying to, in his own way, as he approached Queen Bay, I want part of the business. I want part of the business. I was just telling someone that was like one of my favorite scenes in the film, but I miss Queen Bay. Working with her was such an amazing experience. And for the most part, like all the cast and crew, it was a really amazing experience, Kevin. I just want to say thank you for, giving me an opportunity and letting me be a part of such a wonderful project. And as I sat and watched it here today, and I think about a lot of the dialogue and the script, how prevalent it is currently. It just, it kind of blew my mind as I was sitting here watching it with my daughter, Braylon, who I was also excited that she's able to be here with me today. And so that means a lot.
And let's walk forward a little, and this is still pretty broad, but the opening quote, the blues tells us. Kevin, why is it important for us to know what the blues tells us?
Well, the blues is a kind of big thing for me, and Ralph Ellison has this definition of the blues, which is that, the blues give you meaning by going back and touching its kind of jagged edge. And the blues is a memory that we all have, and the blues is kind of the bad things that happen to you in life, and difficulties that you endure and that you have to struggle and get through. And you go back to that memory, and that memory has a jagged edge. But you have to go back and you have to feel that jagged edge. And you have to be willing to be hurt by it a bit. And then by doing that, it gives you meaning. And then it kind of turns into a power instance. And then it becomes almost laughter after that. So, but it all starts with going back to that memory that you have, that has that jagged edge, that hurts. But by doing that, it gives you a certain power.
And it was Huddy and Bebo.
Huddy and Bebo.
They are
blues.
They're the blues, that jagged edge. Yes.
Yeah, and for me it was my parents. I was very fortunate to have great parents, and I have some folks here from Junction City. Ted Stevens, his mom was a big influence on me. She was a great lady, and all of them, in their own way, they didn't call it the blues, but they were teaching you about the blues. And there was a man that his name was Ralph Starks. He lived in our basement. He was a Buffalo soldier. He was an alcoholic. And he lived in our basement, and I learned a great deal. Buddy Bebo is a lot of Bebo is him. I learned a lot from him about history, and he was in North Africa and Sicily in World War II. He was a Buffalo soldier. He fought there. And, but his wife lived a couple blocks from our house, and they were divorced, and he lived in our basement, and he drank every day in our house, and my mother and him were great friends. And, so drinking and the blues, and, I remember my mom would say, I'm going through the change of life. And, it was like, my God, is she going to turn into like a vampire? What's the change of life, The change of life, wow. And you tell kids that stuff, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. The change of life, my God. And and I'm taking all that stuff in as a kid. And she's, going up and down, and so, but when you kind of go through all that and you look back, it's actually a strength that you get from it. And it gives you all this meaning that all the good and bad things that happen. And so I try that for me, that's who they are.
Yes. And I'm going to ask this of both of you, but I'll stay with you, Kevin, on this one. The ideologies that you were exploring back then, how much of them are still prevalent in your work as you move forward, as you evolve as a writer, director, actor? And then which of them did you retire? Did you say, I don't have space for you anymore, I don't need you anymore, you've already served me?
In terms of ideas, well, you know, I was telling you, I haven't watched the film in a long time. It's probably at least 10 years or more that I haven't seen it. And seeing it today was really interesting because it's like seeing it all over again. Like, we had to premiere on 18th of 9, and Isaac was there, and it was such a great thing. But I think the ideas that those are the ideas I still deal with. I mean, that hasn't changed much. You know, the dialogue was, a lot of the dialogue was from the play. You know, as they say, you kind of open it up in terms of movie terms. I took the play and I opened it up and tried to make it into a movie. But the movie is, the play is Blake B. Mahoney on the corner talking to those guys. And my mother, there was a cousin I had, you know, and there was a woman that was kind of carrying me a bit, and there was a woman that lived across the street from us, name was Thomasina. She was basically a combination of Thomasina and a guy by the name of Pop Bottle Willie, and I turned her into Pop Bottle Ruby. And she was a mentally ill woman, and she was kind of notorious in Junction City. And she lived across the street from us growing up. And so we knew her before she kind of lost her mind. And I grew up with her kids. In fact, I posted this, and one of her kids, you know, they live in Maine now, and they say, "Hey, this is Thomasina's daughter, Marquita." And it's like wow. And they were so proud. They were so proud that I didn't call her Thomasina, but they're kind of proud that they know who that is. And everybody in Junction City kind of knew that was Thomasina. And then that line that the street preacher says about Dr. King, I was trying to integrate the fire department in Junction City in the 1980s before I got into film. We were protesting. And one of those street preacher guys said that line to me about, if Dr. King had been in church being Reverend King instead of being Dr. King, he wouldn't be dead now. That was a guy who really said that to me. And I said, that's a damn good line, dude. I'm going to write that down right now. So I'm putting that in my movie. My first movie I'm going to make, I'm going to put that in my movie, dude. And that's how ignorant your ass is, you know. So really, all those things, the anti-war stuff, all that stuff is still a big part of my food. You know, not really. I mean, I feel like prostitution and pimping and all of that stuff was such a big part of growing up in Junction City. It was a big part of, you know, I mean, we just knew those guys, and the people that criticized the film that are from Junction City, they wanted to be a document. You know what I mean? You know, that's the thing when you make a film about a real place and real people kind of still around and go, hey, wasn't like that. You know, and it's like, and I didn't ever pay that much attention because the reality of it is that you never can satisfy those because, you know.
For me, over the period of time that we spent doing the film, you know, Kevin and I would conversate about, you know, love's role and scenes would get written as we were going along and changes and stuff like that. And so I was completely open to all of the ideas. I kind of liked how the character developed. Love, the one scene that sticks out is the scene where he approaches Carrie Ann in the bar, and he says, "Come on back home, we had something." That was the one scene that love was different in the entire film. And he showed a different side of himself. And so that one always kind of stuck out to me, and it was really cool. And then I remember one time, I moved away from Lawrence back home to Chicago. And Kevin found himself, as he always used to joke, "I got no money, but we gonna shoot this movie." And so there was a situation where some money was found, it was time to shoot again, but I had moved away. And he contacted me, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna come back in, and we're gonna shoot the scene." This was the scene with Isaac Hayes in the cab stand, where I'm pulling on the cigarette machine. And he was like, "You pull that knob, there ain't none in here." Isaac was so cool. We had so much fun. But so as I approached the cab stand and we shoot the scene, and he grabs the Folgers metal can, to spit in the can as he's angry at me and we talking trash to each other. He goes to spit in the can, he misses the can and spits all over my hand. I will never forget that. It was super hilarious. And ironically, we were shooting this scene on my birthday. Isaac Hayes spit black licorice on my hand on my birthday. You can't write this. It was unbelievable.
So I'm going to ask the question real broad, and you can answer it however you see fit. Film and its power to preserve. Its role then in preserving what was happening culturally and politically around the war abroad, the war at home, and the war within us. We know you to be an artisan who uses film to capture our sentiment around these wars and how they collapse on one another masterfully. So in our current time, where knowledge and education and truth are all whoa, what can we do? How can we use art and film to preserve and perhaps shift us away from where we are?
Well, that's great. I think that's kind of my whole thing. That I try to make movies that about things that I think we need to examine closer, or to remember, or to preserve in various ways, and to kind of explain and to argue against. And for me, it's a form of activism in a way. And Ninth Street, was when they knocked the street down, Urban Renewal knocked the street down, and my parents knew the folks there, and they had, as they determined, they were places of business. They had places of business there. So the cab stand, B&W cab that Tippy Toe has, and my mother's dear friend, her name was Tilly, and that's a pyramid at Queen Bay place, and she was actually killed by a soldier on Ninth Street near the end of Ninth Street's existence. And I remember I was probably in about 4th or 5th grade, and my mother came home from her funeral, and she was really upset. She said, "My friend Tilly had been killed." And so those things kind of, it was their reactions and their kind of their memories and how the importance that they gave the street that kind of then shaped my thinking about it. And so for me, you know, 9th Street and CSA and kind of every movie I make, Bunker Hill you're going to see here in a minute, all of them are part of my argument for democracy. All of them are part of my argument toward what I hope is a better America. And right now, you know, I think when you see 9th Street is like, this is the thing that they're attacking right now. And, you know, they're attacking the poorest of us in this country. The poorest of us. And they treat the poorest of us as if they have nothing to give us, nothing to teach us, nothing to tell us, nothing that makes their life as valuable and as important as everyone else's. And that is, as the movie tries to say, that is what people in hoodie are struggling with. They talk a lot about that. And that's the thing that makes it hard to be poor in this country. Because you got everything is saying to you in various ways, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. And you have to kind of put that aside to kind of move forward. And so, you know, that's the thing that kind of struck me today. You know, that the message of the movie, I think when we made the film, I think it was better. Times were better. You know, I think we were kind of figuring some things out. And we did learn some things from the 60s. And things were moving forward. And, you know, we got that line in there about, you know, black president. And we got black president. It's like, you know, and now we're having the backlash of having a black president. And we're all suffering through the results of moving forward. Because now we get to move all the way back to where we were. In fact, further back than people in hoodies in 1968. Further back than that, we're going to go all the way back now. And so that's the thing that movies can do for you. Movies can say, this is the reality you're living in, or this was the reality you're living in. And so, you know, Bertolt Brecht said, you look back, and by looking back, you comment on now. And so we were talking about now, that was like when did this damn movie run? 91. We started shooting in 91, took about 9 years. And every morning I get up and say, I'm gonna finish that damn movie. I'm gonna finish that damn movie. And it literally took 9 years. It's like, I need to write a book about just what we went through to things. And there's a woman here, Chris Avery, who, thank God, without her, the movie would not have gotten finished. I mean, she opened her place up to me, and she did the sound, and we edited it there, and there was a lot of amazing things happening. So Mike Brandt, who edited the film, and I had to drive from Lawrence to Kansas City after hours to edit the film at Paddock Studios, because that's when it was closed. They let me go into the ad, it was just getting started. And so they would let me go in after hours when no one was there. And Mike Brandt was a student at the time. And he edited the film, and he became the guy that now has all of those Chicago TV shows on NBC.
Yes.
He became the guy that Chicago Fire and Chicago, he's the executive producer of all those. He created all those shows. He was just a little dude, just in college, being a grip on our film, and I was editing this movie with him, and I got an Oscar, and he's got this thing, and it's like, what the hell happened here? Like, you know, we just some low ass people down there get something going here, you know? You never know. You just never know.
Greatness, yes. So we are gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Do we have time for a couple of questions from the
I
audience?
put one or two, but we have to get ready for Bunker Hill.
Okay, one or two questions you have. I saw one hand go up really fast.
Go right ahead.
So my question is, during the film, you talked about sending all the black people to the moon. And my first thought when I heard you talk about that was, did you already have the idea for your Planet Negro film?
You're a real fan. You are a real fan. You know, that's been, you know, before Afrofuturism was a thing, that was my thing of Afrofuturism. You know, I was always getting those ideas. And, you know, I think that whole thing of sending black folks to the moon, you take black folks out of the equation and replace them with prisoners. I think that's what's going to probably happen in real life. I think eventually, we'll all be gone by then, but eventually, they're going to use the moon and places like that to take the undesirables. It's like Rebo says in the film, I actually do really believe that. And I can see that easily happening. In fact, I think they even talked about it already. So yeah, I mean, you know, Afrofuturism is fun because you kind of take the black experience and the ups and downs and all the things that make that, and then you kind of put it in sci-fi, and you come up with crazy concepts.
I'd like to update that states, no, we're gonna send them to Mars.
There you go.
Just ask Mars.
That's right. There you go. There you go.
What did the soldier say to Green Bay in Vietnamese when he shot?
Oh, he's speaking Vietnamese. It's been so long, I forget what he said, but it was kind of it was something that was, anybody speak Vietnamese? Okay. But it was something that was said during the war, kind of, it was like an interrogation kind
We have a question outside.
Hey Kevin,
Great.
so Marymount College,
Yes.
Professor Denning,
Yes.
one of our oldest, wonderful hearing, and you are such an inspiration. I just love everything you do. Question for Byron is, how did you like working with Martin Sheen?
Oh, man. I love working with Martin Sheen. I remember when Kevin was in the process of kind of trying to put the film on a new plateau and it's trying to give it some Hollywood shoulders, if you will. And then between Isaac and Martin, we started kind of bringing in, you know, bigger names to give the film some weight and traction, if you will. All those gentlemen were super, super professional and super awesome. It was almost kind of like we treated them like family and they reciprocated. And so it was always a good feeling. It was never, for me, a feeling of nervousness. Like, well, here I am, this cat from Chicago and going to school in Kansas, and now I'm working on a film with Martin Sheen and Isaac Hayes. And I never really had that nervous thing. I was just, it was natural. It was like, I'm supposed to be here and let's get it done.
Hey fellas, how you doing?
Hey.
Clement Jones here. So,
My man, he's a brother that they beat up and drag him out of the cafe, put him in the police car.
how you doing? Since you said that, I'll speak on it right quick. So, when Kevin put me in there, he goes, okay. So I'm in there with two cops, and we're in there in the back of the place, and we're like, I said, so what do we do? They said, we don't know, it's okay. Nobody's telling us nothing. So Kevin said, you're gonna come out, you're gonna struggle, you'll come out, this woman, and so we come out and struggling. They slammed against the car. He says, cut, wait. He says, I have no shorts on you. Wait a minute. He said, I need you to calm down, kid. Oh, about 26 years old. But the question for both of you guys is, when you write a script for a movie, what scene can you remember that? It was just off script. You're like, just let it just fly. Just keep going. Don't worry about it. Because love, you're something else, boy. So how much of that was just off script? Because your flow was incredible. So can you remember anything that was used it was written, but it wasn't?
Well, there's a bunch of little things that, because when you get a good actor and you give them the space to kind of do their thing. And there's certain scenes where, like the scene that you're in, with Don Washington, who played Bebo, that was all scripted, but then you let Don do his thing, and he's yelling and hollering and, there's a lot of Richard Pryor in Bebo. I was a Richard Pryor fanatic for a long time, and so you can see the Richard Pryor influence there. But you just give the actors some space to do their thing, and when you got an actor that understands the part, that understands what the movie's about, and understands what you're trying to do, you let them do that.
Well, let's give everyone another round of applause. We can start the Q&A episode.